All right, and welcome back to our modern FNM here at GameSwap Mason, brought to you by Top Deck Productions. We've got a good one here. Jeff Angel is on Reverse Shadow, and Jason Morgan is on Mardu. Last week we saw Jason on Mardu Pyromancer, so
we really hope it's the same thing.
I do. This is going to be a grind fest. Both of these decks are just going to go at each other, trying to
absolutely we
eke out card advantage.
Two examples of very fair decks that are trying to do a lot of the same thing. Both decks care about their graveyards in a great deal. Both decks are trying to win with big stupid creatures. One of them, I think Jason's deck is trying to win with a bunch of little stupid creatures.
dude, I don't check your privilege there, Connor. Do you know how many tokens you get when you have a Pyromancer out and you cast Lingering Souls?
Plenty.
You get 3.
You get plenty.
You get 3.
Well,
that is
you
sweet.
Actually get 6 if you're doing it right. So we have the most complicated roll-off known to man going on, and it looks like...
Well, they were just rolling 3 dice. Some people like 3 better than 2. Some people just want to roll 1 and call odd even.
Those dice are so big, though. Like, I can't fit 3 of those in, like, one hand.
Those dice are...
Those are big dice.
They are thick.
They're thick.
Okay. Looks like Jason won after all of that nonsense. So we're going to see an Inquisition of Kozilek off of Blackleaf Cliffs.
Look at all those lands in Jeff's hand. That can't be good.
It's fine. It's better than going. It's better than going to 6. It's got to be better than going to 6.
You're right. Well, we've got 4 lands. One of them's not even a fetch land, and only 3 spells. And now it's down to 2 spells,
which are discard spells, and those are not great in the black mirrors.
What am I seeing? What's that far to the left? I saw an Inquisition. I'm not sure what that last spell was.
It was a Thoughtseize.
Was it a Thoughtseize?
It was a Thoughtseize.
I must be blind.
So we're gonna see Jeff's own Inquisition.
But we're gonna be paying some life here, which is much better for Jeff. This is a tough hand for Jeff to look at. Lingering Souls famously is incredibly good against this type of deck. It especially against Mardu, it trades very, very profitably with the card Young Pyromancer, which is a big part of Jason's deck, and discarding it doesn't really do much.
Yeah, we're gonna see it. I think that's a very clear, clear choice there.
The choice is clear, but that hand can't be nice for Jeff.
It makes his Thoughtseize that he's probably gonna play next turn less appealing, but he gets to get a removal spell out of the way. Jason just picked up a Fatal Push, which I have to imagine that's what Jeff will take when he Thoughtseizes.
Absolutely.
And there's another Pyromancer. I'll correct myself there. That is definitely getting Thoughtseized. So here, Jason's gonna put the Lingering Souls into the graveyard,
sure.
And what else? Extra land.
It looks like we've got 2 lands in there. My wager would be the Lingering Souls is for sure.
Lingering Souls for sure.
That card is in the deck to be pitched to Faithless Looting. That's what it's there for. That's why the deck only runs 1 white source.
Yeah.
Because you want to hard cast that, and they're only the rarest of scenarios.
I've seen basic planes. I'm not in love with it.
Looks like we've got
the Lightning Bolt. I agree. The Lightning Bolt's not doing anything here.
Right. You know, we're trying to take Tarmogoyfs off the battlefield from Jeff's side. Bolting a Tarmogoyf, that doesn't do anything.
All right.
You got to really do the math hard on that.
And we picked up another Thoughtseize. Not fantastic. We're going to lead with a Thoughtseize. And that's going to take the Mardu. It's going to take the Pyromancer.
Almost definitely. That Fatal Push isn't doing anything. In
honestly, I could see Jeff firing off the other Thoughtseize and just taking the Fatal Push. Like, that leaves Jason with nothing.
Absolutely.
Jason's just empty-handed over there.
You know, in Jeff's scenario, he had the option to just go ahead and run out the old Fetch Shock Thoughtseize Mark II and take that last card out of Jason's hand. I don't think that's correct. I think that Fatal Push is fine in Jason's hand.
Especially with Jeff not having a threat.
Yeah, you want to. I mean, Jason's just sandbagging that fatal push. Jeff gets to decide the time and place that he gets to look at Jason's hand and take that fatal push. He gets to decide when that fatal push becomes relevant and if it becomes relevant at all.
Very good point. Now, in spite of how effective it appears that the discard on both sides of the battlefield look, I suspect games 2 and 3 will see both players strip their decks of the hand attack.
So when you've got two hand attack decks going head to head, it's really dueling banjos. You know you're gonna thought seize your opponent and take their thought seize, and then they're gonna thought seize you and take your thought. What are you even doing there?
These decks are gonna go long. You want more threats.
Right.
These games are typically decided by who can stick a threat and keep it.
Absolutely.
Now that being said,
I think Jason's deck is better at that. Just as a deck.
As a go wide, and that actually makes the hand attack better in Jason's deck because he wants to be able to defend his threats more. Jeff can replace his threats; he can buy them back.
Right. So these two decks, they operate very largely along the same axis, but at different capacities. You see.
Yeah.
We've got a really fine example of quantity versus quality. So Jeff's deck, we're playing big Death Shadows, big Tarmogoyfs, big Delve threats, and in Jason's deck, we're playing lots and lots of 1/1s.
A 2/1 that makes
a 2/1 and a 3/4 that draws 3 cards.
That draw you your 1/1s.
We've got absolute opposite ends of the fair spectrum here, and that just makes for an interesting game. Honestly,
it does.
It's the most fun type of game to watch.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens here. But typically, the black decks, in these mirrors, they'll take out their hand attack. So now Jeff, looks like Jeff just passed the turn. Jason's going to get in for 2 with his Lingering Souls. He has the choice to flash back a Faithless Looting, or he can attack Jeff's hand.
How many cards do we have in Jeff's hand? Looks like 3? 4. There's
3 or
4
4.
cards in that hand.
And Jeff hasn't seen a threat other than that opening Tarmogoyf, which has to be why he capped.
For sure. Especially not knowing what your opponent's on. You keep that one threat hand and then it gets thought seized out, it's bad news. That's one of the reasons that we're going to be seeing a lot of, stripping away of that hand disruption going into the second game.
We have a Mishra's Bauble and a Kolaghan's Command. It's interesting that he didn't play the Mishra's Bauble. Is there any reason you can think of to hold on to that? Then just play it out?
Coming out of this deck, I'm really unsure. He very well could just be bluffing card advantage, which he definitely has, but
the Bauble replaces itself.
That's very true. I can't really think of some reason not to play it in this scenario, because he's not I could see holding on to it in case you want a Faithless Looting later on, but that's not the right deck. And
this is another reason why the discard spells are better in Jason's deck. We're at the point in the game where they have they don't really matter that much anymore. He can just Faithless Looting them away.
Faithless Looting is great. It is card selection at its best.
And this is a matchup where that's important.
And in this format in general, card selection is much better than card advantage. That's why Serum Visions is such a powerhouse card. Now, obviously, if we had Ponder and Preordain, we'd be playing those instead in all those blue decks. But, Serum Visions, replacing itself is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But the real powerhouse of those cards is that Scry too. That is information and selection.
It sets your next turns up.
Absolutely. And being able to choose the cards that are in your hand, especially in a matchup like this, are much more important than just putting more cards in your hand. That's why the Faithless Lootings are really what's going to matter for Jason this game, I think.
And it puts it in the graveyard.
It puts it in the graveyard.
They're cards he can use later. Flashback cards, creatures that he can buy back with Kolaghan's Command.
Yeah. So in the Mardu decks, we see generally some number of Gurmag Anglers and a solid 4 Bedlam Revelers. And Bedlam Reveler, similar to the Delve cards, you get to play it way ahead of curve on the contingency of having cards in your graveyard, but you do not need to spend the cards in your graveyard.
Yeah, the Delve threat of the Mardu decks is the Bedlam Reveler. It doesn't get rid of the cards, but it requires you to have them in your graveyard.
They still have the Gurmag Anglers, for sure.
I don't think they play that.
I've seen a lot playing at least 2. I could be wrong. I don't know exactly what Jason's running, but a lot of times I see the Gurmag Anglers coming out. But whether or not they're playing it, the ideal play with the Gurmag, you get to drop a Bedlam Reveler, discard your hand, draw a Gurmag Angler, and then play it for 1 mana. Cool and easy 1 mana. So we get Thoughtseize number 3 coming out of Jeff's hand.
His life total is just dwindling away. We'll take your
and this is exactly
Inquisition.
what I was talking about. That Thoughtseize didn't do anything for Jeff.
No, he lost 2 life.
Yeah, he lost 2 life and discarded a card.
Jason's board went from a 9-turn clock into a 7-turn clock.
So here we have the namesake card, Traverse the Ulvenwald, which is going to go get him a Death Shadow. So the card's really interesting. It says 1 mana, 1 green, sorcery, go get a basic land and put it into your hand. But if you have Delirium, you get to go get any land or any creature, which what it means is, you know, you get to Worldly Tutor for your Death Shadow and play it for 2 mana.
Sometimes Tarmogoyf is going to be better, and you can go get that. There are a lot of really interesting tricks you can do with Traverse the Ulvenwald. Like, you can go get a land, like a fetch land, so that you can lose 3 life to pump your Shadow. You can go get a Street Wraith to cycle it, to pump your Shadow and draw a card.
The card just has so much utility.
Those lines.
Here we saw Jason playing his land and passing it back to Jeff because he knows he has to have the option to throw that Spirit into that Death Shadow. That Death Shadow is a 6/6, and which has the potential to become very out of hand. So if that 6/6 gets through, putting Jason to 13,
and that's what the dice is representing here. It's for clarity's sake.
Yeah. So putting Jason down to 13 is almost the next turn death sentence from threat from Jeff. Because you've got this deck almost assuredly, we've got the Temur Battle Rage in there, which is going to turn this 6/6 into a 12/12. Effectively, a 12/12.
With the red, definitely. I know people who prefer blue as the 3rd color. You can even splash a 4th color.
This is a 4-color deck, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, with a Polluted Delta in there, why not?
I don't think we haven't actually seen white or blue. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some blue from that Polluted Delta, but a lot of people like the white for that tried and true card, Lingering Souls.
Like white for Lingering Souls, blue for Snapcaster Mage, red for Temur Battle Rage and Cole Against Command. But at its core, it's a black-green deck.
Really, it really is.
And this one, last round we saw Mishra's Bauble as kind of like a free, like Mishra's Bauble plus fetch land as kind of like an opt. In this deck, he gets to do that, but it also fuels his Delirium, which we were talking a little bit about last round.
It makes his Goyf bigger, it turns on his Traverses, and it makes those Delve threats cheaper.
This deck really takes advantage of Mishra's Bauble, and it's actually from these builds of the Shadow that the Grixis build got the Mishra's Baubles from. The Mishra's Bauble's so good in this one that even though it doesn't like make your threat bigger, it doesn't turn on like Delirium or anything, Mishra's Bauble just has so much utility in these Shadow decks that the Grixis deck started playing them.
So let's look at this board state right now. Jeff has absolutely stabilized. That Liliana took out that last Lingering Souls token, and we've got 12 power on board on Jeff's side, out of absolutely nowhere. So we need 1 damage out of Jeff's side in order to just carry lethal through to Jason, and that could be a fetch land, a Street Wraith. He could put a card into the graveyard and make his Goyf bigger. You never know.
Another
that Liliana
type
could just die.
He could traverse, like I was saying, he could traverse for a fetch land to fetch and shock. He could traverse for a shock. He could traverse for a Street Wraith.
So what cards win the game for Jeff right here? A Traverse, a Liliana, because he gets to just Legend Rule 1 into the yard. Any fetch land, a Street Wraith. There's so many.
It'd have to be a Liliana. It'd have to be a Liliana, the Last Hope. Liliana of the Veil, he can just play.
He could very well play out Liliana of the Veil, and then discard a card.
Jeff has a lot of ways that he can potentially win next turn, but even still, okay, so he didn't do any of those things. He just put Jason to 1. That's a good draw for Jason. That buys him a lot of time.
And without any of those draws that just end the game, putting your opponent to 1 is usually never the wrong decision. And we got Jason's just going to scoop it up here.
Jason's going to scoop it up because, and the reason for that is Jason had 5 lands. He had 5 lands out, but one of them was a fetch, and he couldn't fetch being at 1. So he couldn't cast Lingering Souls and flash it back. He could only cast it and Jeff had a Lilion on the Last Hope, which would kill one, and then Jeff would kill Jason with whichever one they didn't block.
Can we get a Traverse the Ulvenwald up on the stream here for a moment? I just want to talk about the card. It's a very interesting card. It has a lot more utility than people generally think. So for 1 mana, going to get a basic land and putting it in your hand isn't really that great. We've got a lot of cards that do that already in this game. But the text on Delirium here, which is stunningly easy to set up on Jeff's side, by the way, it lets you go get a creature or land card. Now, the restrictions being not there anywhere on that text box make this card absolutely nuts.
Yeah. By default, you're getting a basic land, which is cool early if, like, you kept a one-lander.
You know, sometimes you just need to do it. I've seen it happen. The person casting Traverse for a basic is usually not happy about it.
But
sometimes you got to get it.
That being said, that lets you keep a wider variety of hands. Like, you have your 7, and it's a great hand, but you need a second land. There's the Traverse.
Look at
you
that.
can get green. You can go get a basic.
Yeah, sometimes that's just what you got to do.
That's all the more likely the more that you mulligan. Like, let's say you go to 6. Again, one-lander. Traverse for a basic. Once you have Delirium, the world's your oyster.
So at its absolute worst, it's pretty okay. At its best, like look what we saw here. It was it ended up being 2 mana, put 7 power on board. That's what it was this game for real.
The difference between this and the Grixis builds is that the Grixis builds play more cantrips. Blue.
Absolutely.
Blue lets you do that. Blue.
Your Thought Scours.
Yeah, your Thought Scours,
and
your
Interruption.
your Thought Scours, your Serum Visions, if they still play that, your all of your cantrips let you just dig and dig and dig through your deck to find your threats. Traverse Shadow only has Mishra's Bauble.
And the Traverse the Ulvenwald just becomes your...
Because they have Traverse the Ulvenwald, it's copies 5 through 8 of all of their threats. It just lets you get your threat instead of having to find it.
And the Traverse also just randomly lets you shuffle away the card that you looked at from Mishra's Bauble if you don't like it.
That's another one. There you go.
Shuffle effects are widely underrated.
Shuffle effects plus Mishra's Bauble is like opt.
Absolutely.
It's okay. Like, reading the card explains the card.
I've always wanted to get a playmat that said that. My girlfriend thinks it's obnoxious, though.
The Tolarian Community College playmat says that.
Oh yeah.
You want to get that playmat?
I eyeball it every weekend. Whenever I watch a TCC video, I go, I kind of want that.
He just did one of a box opening of M19. He said the M stands for core. He says it's July 2018, and we're opening core 19. Wow, did I miss a whole year? The M stands for core. It was funny. And so he gets to like a very disappointing like $77 out of his $100 goal. And then there's this clip of him like walking in the alley like behind wherever his office is, and he's just like really disappointed. He like just throws like the wrappers for like the packs everywhere and just is like so upset. Anyway,
I would be if I opened a whole box of core 19.
Well, that being said, like, packs are for drafting. You know, it's nice when you win packs for drafting, but the packs are for drafting. That's where the real value is. And I have to say that Core 19, for anyone out there who hasn't drafted it yet, it's lit. I'm not going to lie. It's a very good set. So, you know, not everyone's... Some people are kind of down on, like, oh, it's a core set. Whatever. Like, the quality of commons and uncommons in this set is excellent, and the majority of whatever limited deck you play is going to be built around your commons and uncommons. That's where your synergy is. It's not all about your bomb rares. I mean, you might have one, and that card might win you the game by itself, but the majority of your plays are going to be based around your commons and uncommons and the deck that you build around those. And in that way, Core 19 is just excellent. The rares and the mythics, they're for enfranchised, constructed players. And that's really cool in the sense that, like, if you open a box, you might get some Elder Dragons. You might get Escape Shift or Crucible of Worlds. But in draft, those cards don't matter. You get to take the sweet removal spell at uncommon that you actually want to take.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If
you open a Bomb Planeswalker pack 1, you can build a deck around it. And if you open it pack 3 and you're not in those colors, you just pass it along. I've really liked the Core 19 experience so far. And I have to say, I'm very interested to see how those rares and mythics that are designed for competitive play impact competitive play. Just this past weekend, we saw a team open in Philadelphia, I believe, and one of the modern decks, the top 8'd, was Bant Spirits, playing 4 Supreme Phantoms. So we've already seen cards from Core 19 have an immediate impact.
All right, so let's head back down to the feature match area here. It looks like both players mulligan to 6 and scribe to the top.
Well, as long as both players mulligan, it keeps it on an even field. The player on the draw still gets to draw a card first, but you're both starting with 6. I always feel a lot better about my mulligans when my opponent is like, I'll join you in that.
So we've got either a turn 1 Faithless Looting or a Thoughtseize or Inquisition coming out of Jason's hand right here. I'm going to bet that it's a Faithless Looting. Because like we said, we wanted to see most of that hand attack come out.
I see an EE and a Surgical Extraction. Those are sideboard cards. Not a fan of the Surgical Extraction. Jeff is limited on the number of different threats that he has in his deck. He only has Shadows and Goyce. I have to imagine that's what the Surgical is for. But I do think that Surgical is one of, if not the most, overboarded cards in Modern.
Absolutely. It's one of those cards where when you're putting your sideboard together for an event, you just have some, and you just put them in because you don't know what else to put in there. I've done the very same thing.
I think a lot of people fall into that trap. So we saw an Inquisition of Kozilek taking Kolaghan's Command.
Now, Kolaghan's Command in this matchup, very similar to our last match, which was Affinity versus Grixis Shadow. It is a pretty big deal in this matchup because of 2 entirely different modes. So instead of dealing 2 damage and shattering, which is what the default choice was against Affinity, we are going to have lots of discarding and reanimating creatures.
The modes, ideally, I see Kolaghan's Command killing a Pyromancer, getting back a threat. But yes, like if Jason is down to 1 card and he's top decking and he draws the card for the turn, Jeff can instant speed. Hey, I'm going to make you discard that and get back this threat that I killed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, just discard your top deck, and I'm going to get back my threat.
That's the power of Kolaghan's Command and command cards in general. Command cards are these, like every single command spell, and we currently have 10. 1 for each color, and then 1 for each ally pair. They all are a reasonable mana cost for what they do. They all have 4 different modes, and you get to pick 2 of them. They're just super pliable.
Very, very much so.
And like we were talking about, Kolaghan's Command in this matchup is doing completely different things than it is in other matchups, and that's why it's such a great card. They're not all winners, okay? Like, they're not all winners, especially like the original set of them, but I think the second time around, with the ally color ones associated with the dragons, there were a lot of winners there.
I don't know. That mono black command, Profane Command, I play that in every commander deck that I can.
I'm sure you do. I'm really interested to see what they do with, when they get around to it, to the enemy pairs. Absolutely. So like Simic and Orzhov, Boros. Those commands.
All right, so I want to look at this board state here for a moment. This is a engineered explosives on 1. What does that mean to you?
Shadow.
Oh yeah.
That is a very clear, like, hey, you want to play your Shadow?
Jeff can now not play the best card in his deck until he answers that engineered explosive.
And what's interesting is, like, Jason doesn't really have a lot of 1-drops in his deck. He doesn't really have
yeah, he doesn't.
I don't think he cares about that at all.
I can't think of any 1-drop creature.
No, all his things are 0 or 2, and then what's Bedlam Reveler?
8, 6, and red.
That is correct. So like Jason putting it on a 2 for like Tarmogoyf or Grimflare.
That's gonna backfire.
If Jason, yeah, exactly. Oh God.
Yeah. So,
Jeff also has a surgical
here
extraction.
We have both players with surgical extractions
Louise.
in their hand, and Jeff was definitely thinking about surgically those young pyromancers just now. That had to be going through his mind. And he's going to fire it off on Jason's draw step so that he maybe gets that third one
right
in Jason's hand. So we almost get a discard spot.
I do like this play, especially with Jason being on 2 lands. If Jason was on 3, he runs the risk of letting him Colligan's Command. I'm going to get it back. But then again, like, the Surgical would just then take it because it would be in his hand, so never mind.
We have a hidden mode of Surgical here that Jason did not choose to invoke, is you can Surgical your own card to fizzle your opponent's Surgical. Because when you search, you don't reveal your hand, you search your hand, and you search your deck, so you can just fail to find. So a Surgical Extraction also amounts to 1 mana or 2 life, counter your opponent's Surgical Extraction. We get to Mental Misstep in Modern, if you really want to go that deep.
Well, if he just fails to do it, Jeff's would then resolve.
That's not true. So when you Surgical a creature, that creature still gets exiled no matter what.
Okay.
But then when you go to search your own...
Oh, okay.
Hand,
so it would... That's an excellent point. It would exile the one that you target and keep all the other ones safe.
Exactly. You just fail to find.
That's cool.
But he clearly did not choose to do that. He values that.
He must value it for something else. But you know, like, Jeff hasn't presented a threat here. Jason has Jeff has to present a threat. Jason has to remove that threat and then Surgical it.
Yeah,
now Jason is out of he's out of Pyros.
And Jeff has lands in hand. I think he just drew a Colligan's Command, but that is not quite gonna get him there.
Tellerico, thank you for the follow. We didn't forget you.
So it looks like that is definitely a Colligan's Command. So that Colligan's Command can actually answer this Engineered Explosives. So a well-timed K command here takes a card out of Jason's hand, or takes a creature off the battlefield and answers the Engineered Explosives. Now, looks like we are on Jason's turn, and there's a Thoughtseize coming at Jeff.
That brings up a good point. So Jason has like 50. When Jeff Surgical, Jason had like 50 cards in his deck. He only had 2 Pyros left. Jason has to draw them. The thing is, Jason plays Colligan's Command, and he can use Colligan's Command to buy back a Pyro, and he plays Faithless Looting that lets him dig through his deck. Right. Nick Kilgard, thanks for the follow. Didn't forget you.
And a resolved Young Pyromancer is a pretty big deal for Jeff. It's not that it's difficult for Jeff to answer, but just 2 to 3 triggers off of that Young Pyromancer really solidifies Jason's hold on the game, at least until he chump blocks that many times. Usually better than that.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another Hardcast Street Wraith this game, like we did last round.
It's looking like it's going to be one
Jeff
of those
is up to 5 lands, and what's interesting in this matchup, Jason has swamps. He has 2 of them.
He does, in fact, have 2 swamps.
The Swamp Walk is relevant on... it's funny when that happens. You know, Land Walk isn't something that we see anymore. Do you remember the last time they printed a card with Island Walk, Swamp Walk, what set?
I believe it was Masters 25, Street Wraith.
I'm talking about a new set, a set that's cycled through Standard.
I absolutely don't. I don't recall ever, at least since I've been playing, seeing actual Land Walk.
Me neither.
In Standard.
I would like to know what the last set was.
It looks like Core 13 was our last actual land walking creature.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something in like Cons or Origins or something. It's around the time they also phased out Protection.
Meandering Tower Shell. Our friend pointed out Meandering Tower Shell has Island Walk. Absolutely.
And what set is that from?
That is
Tarkir? Well, there you go.
Cons, yep.
So, and then it was in Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon. Eldritch Moon saw the printing of Emrakul, the Promised End, and that is the last card with Protection. It has Protection from instants. So we've seen the phasing out of Protection and Landwalk. Now creatures have, like, they can't be blocked by a specific creature type. They can't be blocked.
We have the
horse cycle
from M19
that can't be blocked by a certain color.
And
or they just can't be blocked.
And the 2 knights from Dominaria that
the
have
knights
hexproof from white and black
right.
respectively.
That's the new pseudo protection. We still see hexproof. We see cards giving hexproof temporarily. Cards making creatures indestructible.
Every set contains planeswalkers. Isn't that your favorite card type, Zach?
What? What?
Planeswalker. That's your favorite card type, right?
My favorite card type?
Yeah.
Planeswalker? Planeswalker would... I'm not a fan of Planeswalkers. Have you read a Planeswalker?
No. I've never read a Planeswalker.
All right.
I play Tron. I've never read a Planeswalker.
For their rate, I don't know. I would like to see more cards that can interact directly with Planeswalkers, and then I might be okay with them. A Planeswalker hitting the field, if you're not playing a creature deck... If you're not playing a creature deck, they are very hard to interact with.
Except for Tybalt. That card didn't even do anything in Limited. That card's bad. And now you can read the Planeswalker. So
this is a failed... Yeah. So most Planeswalkers, they impact... When they come down, and the game is just completely different. The game warps around the Planeswalker. They're very hard to interact with, and they're pretty easy to defend. Most Planeswalkers have, like... something, draw a card, plus some amount, draw a card, minus something, protect itself. This copy paste Planeswalker like design that they just keep going, that they just keep churning through. I don't know. They're very difficult to interact with. Don't even get me started on emblems. I can't believe those things aren't permanents. Like.
So let's jump back into the game here for a moment. Not a lot has occurred. It seems that Jeff has started to draw some actual spells.
Yeah.
And we've presented a creature on Jeff's side. Jason seems to have just been, biding his time. He played in flashback, a Lingering Souls, or he flashbacked and then played, because it looks like we have one in the yard and none in exile.
Yeah, the Lingering Souls here are great. Jason gets to jump block. He gets to swing in a couple of times. He's at a very healthy life total. Apparently, the Tarmogoyf is a 4/5. We'll go to 11. There's no point. A 1/1 is not worth 4 life at this stage in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Jason's in a really good spot here.
He gets to swing for 4. Yeah, he can leave 1 back.
This is a 3-turn clock with evasion, and Jason has 2 relevant removal spells in his hand. He doesn't need to even think twice about that Tarmogoyf.
He has a 3-turn clock that, even if this is how the board state remains the rest of the game, Jason's going to win this race.
Absolutely. Looks like Jeff is coming in clutch with some spot removal here too, but it's not going to be enough.
Now, and you say that, but dude, you're trading a whole card for a quarter of a card. Jason made those 4 tokens with 1 card. And you're going to use a Fatal Push to get rid of 1/4 of that card.
And here's another one.
Here's another one? Great, so even better.
This is now a 2-turn clock. Unless we missed some life total loss. I think regardless, it's a 2-turn clock.
Jeff should be at 9.
Yeah, I believe he just took 3.
He was at 12 and got hit for 3.
Unless... It doesn't matter. I'm sure some other thing has happened. He is playing Shadow after all. So we have a Tarfire coming out here. Now, Tarfire in this deck is not just a throwaway shock. It makes Goyf bigger. That's a tribal sorcery,
and that's relevant. It makes Tarmogoyf bigger on 2 fronts: the tribal and the sorcery. The deck doesn't. It plays discard magic, but it's like a 9th. I would be comfortable to say like a 9th sorcery if he's playing like the full 8 discard spells.
Yeah,
I've seen
Jason just fired off that Fatal Push he's been sandbagging against that Tarmogoyf.
In blue builds, I've seen the Architects of Thought.
Okay, so
to cycle and get an artifact at a creature.
Don't mean to interrupt, but we just saw a Kolaghan's Command for the kill. Exact lethal. Kolaghan's Command is a great card.
That's excellent. Yeah, Kolaghan's Command, that shock, it can close the game. It's literally shock. It's not creature. It's not just creature.
And it's not just player.
It's not just player.
It's shock.
Yeah.
It's shock and Raven's Crime, or it's shock and shatter.
That instant, yeah, and that instant speed. Every
and
mode
it's an
on
instant.
That, every mode on that spell. It's so powerful.
Card is such a powerhouse, and one of my favorite modal card that I like to just scumbag is Cryptic Command. Now, more often than not, playing Tron, people have attempted to Cryptic Command, bounce a Worm Coil or an Oblivion Stone on a turn that I can't pop it, and draw a card. If you can remove your own target, so for example, if somebody goes to bounce Worm Coil Engine, draw a card, and I Nature's Claim my Worm Coil Engine, it fizzles the Cryptic Command.
Yeah, because the targets aren't separate.
Yeah, it is only one target, and you get to cause the card to have no legal targets and fizzle and deny them a card.
Yep.
Get your 2/3/3s, gain 4 life. Everything's great. You cannot do that against Kolaghan's Command, and that's more relevant than you think. It's not even a design intention, I don't think. It's just randomly that mode.
Yeah,
the
like
that they all target.
A lot of cards work like that, where it targets something and then there's effect afterwards. So if you have some way of, you know, if you have some way of getting the creature off the board, if you have some way of getting the creature off the board before, okay. Rose Noble, thank you for the follow. We didn't forget you.
You know who that is, right?
Who is that?
It's Bree.
Oh.
So we've got turn 1 hand attack with stunning consistency.
Connor's girlfriend's in the chat. That's adorable.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Don't worry about it. She insults me all the time. I'm not worried.
So soon, Dre. Hey, Bree.
And it looks like we're taking... it looks like we're not taking anything. We're just organizing the board.
Yeah, what do you take here? Jeez. I'm surprised Jason kept this hand. Like,
so this is where Inquisition feels bad, because you really want to take
They both left in all of their discard spells.
Yeah, that shocks me. So
I don't know who that's better or worse for. I get, like I was saying, like Jason can use them when he needs them and then get rid of the rest of them. Oh, man. Jason kept a 1-lander and it's a swamp.
And the fact that Jeff took that Fatal Push, I'm thinking he's got some threats here.
Traverse the Uvenwald.
That suddenly don't matter, because we have an Inquisition coming in from Jason that's just going to make that Goyf go away. But there's that card, Traverse the Ulvenwald, which is already online.
He's got land, sorcery, and creature. You need 4, my dude.
You need 4?
You need 4. Dude, if Delirium only had 3, dude, that's always on.
Yeah,
that's just always on. 4? You need instant creature, land, sorcery, like, or whatever.
It's not going to be difficult. We can potentially...
I always took... When I first read Delirium, I'm like, when is that not going to happen? I've always been surprised, like, some decks, like, just struggle to get it going. So but
Jason just fired up another Thoughtseize here.
See, now he has it. Now he just has it, right?
Yep. So now he has it. We get to see a land and
he didn't even have
for Goyf and play a Goyf next.
He didn't even have to cast the Kolaghan's Command. Now he just has it.
Yeah. In Jason's seat, I think I would have taken the Traverse. Because that Kolaghan's Command, you know, that's great. Discard a card. Jason, you know you've got some throwaway cards in your hand. You've got at least 2 more hand attack spells that aren't going to...
I think we're going to see another... I think we're going to see another discard... Are we going to see another discard spell? No, okay.
No, we're going to see looting. So,
okay.
Yeah,
well, we've got a game here, boys, because, like, Jason, like a champ, drew a red source, or the ability to get a red source with the Bloodstained Mire. So we have a game.
Yeah, and we've got card selection on the stack. We've got the potential for a big heavy Goyf coming in on Jeff's side next turn, unless he draws something better, which I highly doubt. But this game
we're seeing a pitch of the Thoughtseize and Bedlam Reveler. That's a common play out of these decks. They'll get rid of the Bedlam Reveler early and then buy it back later with K-Command or Liliana the Last Hope.
Yeah. You are right. You do kind of rarely want to board out your discard, especially with the Thoughtseizes. But taking out the Inquisitions, I think, is probably the right decision. Because in this game, we've observed exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of this match. The dueling banjos of hand attack. What did we just see? The first 3 turns were hand attack, hand attack, hand attack, and everybody just has no cards in hand now.
You're just living off the top of your deck, and that's really why. because late game you don't want to be drawing discard spells. That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Like early, yeah, like they take each other's threats, they take each other's removal, cool. Like you just strip them down. But now you don't want to draw them. When you're living off the top of your deck, when you're in your opponent, especially when you and your opponent are living off the top of your deck, like discard magic is not what you want to see.
You definitely want to have some of it because turn 1 is important in every game of Modern. If you're not playing a turn 1 play, you already feel behind, no matter what deck you're playing.
Fair enough.
So you still want to be casting something on turn 1, and there really isn't much better to do in Traverse Shadow. That blank Traverse that you were talking about in case you need that second land, that's not great, though, especially if you have the option to take a card out of your opponent's hand. But having all of it in there, each of these players had 2 to 3 pieces of 1 mana hand attack in their opening hand, and that's just not the best.
We're seeing...
But I'm no Shadow player, so what do I know?
I'm just saying these games are going to go long. Both players are going to draw a lot of cards. They're going to see a lot of their deck, and the late game discard spells are not great. But that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I'm not so much surprised out of Jason leaving them in. Mardu Pyromancer can filter their draws with Faithless Looting. They can just get rid of them. Jeff, on the other hand, he draws an Inquisition here.
Yeah.
He's stuck with it.
So it looks like we actually have a missed bauble trigger from Jeff. I think too much has happened to go back and fix that. But I'd like to point out the most awkward engineered explosives.
Well, Jason's going to try and get some value out of it while he can. And here we see the Manamorphose. Manamorphose in this deck, it lets you... It cantrips. It lets you filter your mana. Maybe you have double mountain. I don't know. Maybe you need double black for a turn and don't have it.
Absolutely.
That being said, it replaces itself. It can fix your mana if that's an issue. Like, this deck does play Blood Moon. So it lets you, like, play a double black spell that you might not be able to cast if you just have a Blood Moon out.
Absolutely.
So it helps that. It lets you play spells through your Blood Moon.
But we haven't seen any Blood Moons yet this match.
Yeah. I think I saw one game 1 in the opener. Or at some point in Jason's hand. Anyway, it can help you cast things through Blood Moon. It replaces itself. It triggers Pyromancer, put an instant into the graveyard for your Bedlam Revel. All around, it's a pretty neat little card.
Solid card.
These Pyromancer decks typically play 1 or 2. I've seen lists with none.
It's a great flex slot. It's easy to board out in
exactly
things.
Yeah, you can always cut it.
It has a lot of utility, more than you would expect.
But this is a matchup where if Jason saw a Blood Moon, it would be relevant, and that would let him cast spells through his own Blood Moon.
Mm-hmm. And this game's actually coming down to the wire a lot.
I can definitely see the Manamorphose being relevant for like casting the front side of a Lingering Souls. Like you have Blood Moon out, and you don't have, like, you're not playing a Plains. I've seen Plains. I've seen a basic Plains in some lists, but like I doubt Jason's playing that. And so if you want to cast the front side of your Lingering Souls, Manamorphose will let you do that. So it's a neat little card. It got him a token.
Now, see, this board set almost looks like Jason's gearing up for a Blood Moon. Blood Moon does so much work against Traverse Shadow.
Yeah, it just leaves him with that swamp, because like there's no way Jeff's playing an island. He can't go, like, what can
he goes to get another swamp, and then you're just stuck on black.
If he even plays another swamp, he probably only has 2 basics in this deck.
That is
like a forest and a swamp. I doubt that he has a mountain or an island. I haven't even seen a blue card yet.
Yeah.
I think the Traverse Shadow decks really want to play mostly black fetches. All their decks, like all their cards are swamp. Like almost all of the cards in their deck are, like all the lands are swamps.
This game looks like it could swing either way, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, Jason does.
Well, that has a lot to do with the discard magic. They both just completely stripped each other, and now they're now they're living off the top of their deck.
Yeah, that engineered explosives is a hell of an insurance policy right now.
Jeff's cards are better because
There we
Hardcast
go.
Street Wraith.
That is
such big game. That is such big game. Like, what in Jason's deck? Like, he's got Dreadbore. If he's playing, like, Terminate, he does have
Dreadbore.
He has Dreadbore. He's got Terminate. He doesn't have a lot of answers.
He does have a Liliana in his hand.
Okay, so
right now, he doesn't have the mana for it, but popping the Engineered Explosives and then slamming the Lily just wipes Jeff's board clean.
Right,
like
and Jeff made the right play there. Like, that Tarmogoyf, see, the trick would have been to, like, Jason was trying to get Jeff to sack the Street Wraith, and then he can pop the Engineered Explosives.
Yep.
Jeff sacrificed the right creature.
For that.
Jason has a very limited number of ways to deal with his Street Wraith, and that Street Wraith can get straight through whatever Jason leaves behind.
And Jason's hand is not great.
And he can't even attack. What's he going to do? Attack into a 3/4? What are you talking about? So Jeff's going to get this Lily off the board.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go after Jason here. Oh, there is. Okay, well, that's interesting.
I think actually Jeff's clock here. Ooh. So here we have a Golgari Charm that's just going to sweep
Bring
out
up Golgari Charm. Golgari Charm is excellent. Charms are different from commands in that, like, a command lets you pick two, gives you 4 options, and lets you pick 2 of them. A charm has 3 modes and lets you pick 1. Golgari Charm. All right, we're going to see a scoop. That's great.
Yeah.
Well then.
Golgari Charm is a powerhouse. I'm reminded of a Pro Tour game where one player used a Golgari Charm to make his creature, which was a scavenging use, dodge a Celestia Charm by making it lower than the power threshold for exiling.
Yes.
And then he used the Scoos, the scavenging use, to pump itself after the resolution of both spells to get lethal through.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Stunning.
Golgari Charm. All creatures get -1/-1. Destroy target enchantment. Regenerate each creature you control.
And look at that friendly guy on the card.
Another mechanic we don't see anymore, Regenerate. Ravnica, I think, was the last set we had Regenerate in.
Which is now, quote, too complicated for new players.
I'd agree with that.
I would not.
Do you know how many people forget that it taps it?
That doesn't make it
Regenerate taps. When you regenerate something, it taps it.
You're right. All you got to do is read the rule, though. I don't think it's too complicated. It's not the easiest thing to understand for a new player, but all you got to do is have somebody explain it to you.
I think it requires... It's unintuitive and would require reminder text, and in a lot of those cards, you don't want to have to fit that in there.
Yeah. Like in Dominaria, we had the return of an old skeleton card that used to say regenerate.
Drudge Skeleton.
Drudge Skeleton. Now, it's not the same card. It wasn't eroded. It's a new card that's absolutely a harken back, but it says 3 mana, tap this creature, give it indestructible.
Yeah, Drudge Skeleton, Drudge Sentinel. It's an excellent callback.
Much nicer than regenerate because it's just a strictly better effect.
Temporarily giving, like, we've seen regenerate and protection replaced by different Drudge Sentinel is a callback to the old, like, Drudge Skeletons. So what we're seeing is we've seen a shift away from just straight up protection and regenerate, and we've seen that replaced with different with hexproof, different variations of hexproof, indestructible, things like that.
Yeah. So here's the old Drudge Skeletons. It's cheaper. The ability is cheaper, but when you really look at it, tap and make indestructible is just better. Regenerate only protects that creature for 1 destroy effect or 1 set of lethal damage, where indestructible protects it for the entire remainder of the turn.
Yep.
So you could swing in and then you could swing with it.
See the reminder text on that? That's the reminder text you need for regenerate. And that's that effect is unintuitive.
Well,
you'd have to put that on every single one.
This wording has been revised since 10th edition.
Fair enough.
There are a lot of unneeded words in there.
You don't want to have to put that reminder text anywhere outside of a core set.
Yeah, but if you're putting this reminder text on a new card, it's much more refined. The new reminder text for regenerate, if I recall correctly, is the next time this creature would be destroyed, instead tap it and remove it from combat.
Okay.
So you don't have to have the it isn't, instead tap it. You know, there's a lot of vernacular.
Fair enough. Well, like I was saying about Golgari Charm, what more could you want out of a card? Finished the game there.
Does everything.
We got to see a Hardcast Street Wraith. Excellent game. Both players got to play their decks exactly how they wanted to. We saw a grind fest. I'd be interested to know why both players left in all their discard magic. We saw them attack each other's hands and be living off the top of their deck.
You probably want to shave it far less than we were saying. I'm sure we exaggerated how much you want to shave a hand attack.
I don't know. I have a friend who's an expert in black-green.
Yeah.
And he says that in like these kinds of mirrors, you take out your discard magic. He takes out all of it. These decks are a little different, but...
Yeah, these two are a little bit more specialized than the standard Jund Rock decks, because these decks are trying to play on curve much more than those other decks. These decks are almost combo decks.
They're a little bit more synergistic, let's put it that way.
They are more than a sum of their parts.
Well, that'll wrap it up for round 2. Let us know in the comments if there are any decks you want to see in the field. I know that we've got Living End out there. We've got a couple of people playing Storm, a couple of variants of Tron. There's that sweet Saheeli Copycat, Kiki,
Cobra deck.
the Lotus Cobra deck out there. We're going to try and get that on. Hollow One. Just let us know if there's anything you want to see, any Core 19 cards you're excited about, and we'll see what we can do. That'll be it for round 2. We'll be back very soon with round 3.
Yeah, we don't got a lot of time left in the round here.
That was